Hi everyone, my name is HoodatQueen94. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a huge New Orleans Saints fan, as well as being a huge fan of the NFL. And Week 18 has come and gone, if you can believe it or not, which means it's the end of the line for the majority of teams in the NFL. And Week 18 had some pretty good games. We had the Buffalo Bills in a heartwarming win. We also had the Detroit Lions and the Packers playing a win and you're in type of game, which, speaking of which, I absolutely think that the Detroit Lions deserve to be in the playoffs. I mean, just imagine, you've just been told that your playoff chances, that you've essentially been eliminated from contention, going out and eliminating your division rival, in a sort of, if I'm not going to get in, you're not going to get in type of situation. I mean, hats off to the Lions. I mean, they have a lot of heart. And if it were up to me, which I know it's not, I would strip the Buccaneers of their mediocre division title and give it to the Lions, because, I mean, that team absolutely deserves to be in the playoffs this year. It's a shame. But, and I will say this, the Lions have so much more heart than the New Orleans Saints. Speaking of which, we have a game to talk about, so without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about it. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the Panthers at the Saints. All right. So, in the first quarter, the Saints get the ball to start. Dalton hits Olave for the 25-yard touchdown at 11:01. Darnold goes long for DJ Moore at 9:33 and overthrows him. Kamara finds a hole for a pickup of 13 at 6:38. Saints are forced to punt at 5:10. Chenault or Foreman, I'm not exactly sure which, doesn't matter, is stopped short at the line again. Panthers are forced to punt with 3:04. Panthers get a personal foul that puts the Saints at field goal range. Saints lead Panthers 7-0. Second quarter. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. Dalton misses Taysom in the end zone. Saints send Lutz to kick a 44-yard field goal at 14:15. It's missed left. Saints force a Panthers punt on another 3 and out at 13:18. Saints go for it on 4th and 1 at the 20 with 7:18, and it's a turnover on downs, of course. Panthers march down the field and use the clock. Darnold's throw is intercepted by Matthew with 27 seconds left. Dalton throws to Juwan to get into field goal range. Olave fumbles with 3 seconds left, and it's picked up by Xavier Woods of Carolina. Of course, Darnold is sacked to end the half. Saints lead Panthers 7-0 going into halftime. Third quarter. Panthers get the ball to start. Saints and Panthers get an unsportsmanlike conduct. Both Davenport and Foreman get ejected from the game at 12:08. Panthers go downfield. Chua gets a series of run plays. Darnold gets a 2-yard run and touchdown, but fumbles, and it's recovered by Michael Jordan of the Panthers for the touchdown to make it a 7-7 game with 6:45. Saints are forced to punt. Saints get the ball back and attempt to go for it on 4th and inches at 1:05. Dennis Allen challenges the spot and wins the challenge, giving the Saints a new set of downs. Saints and Panthers are tied 7-7 to end the third. Fourth quarter. Saints go for it on 4th down and get an offsides by Carolina to give him a new set of downs. Dalton takes a sack and the Saints are forced to punt with 12:39. Darnold picks up the first on 3rd and 3 with 10:04. Panthers are forced to punt. Saints are forced to punt on 7:02. Panthers fumble but recover. Panthers are forced to punt with 4:56. Dalton throws to Troutman for a pickup of 18. Saints are forced to punt with 1:57. Sam Darnold throws a pick at 1:36, and it's recovered by Sorensen for a return of 14 yards. Dalton nearly throws a pick. Saints send out Lutz to kick a 55-yard field goal, and it's missed with 1:24. Darnold picks up the first down with a run of 13 yards at 56 seconds. Darnold throws to Marshall for a pickup of 21 yards. Sorry, yeah. My bad. Yeah, Darnold throws to Marshall for a pickup of 21 yards. Panthers send out Binetto to kick a 42-yard field goal with 3 seconds left. Panthers get the walk-off field goal to beat Saints 10-7. All right. Well, if the Saints wanted to end on a high note, believe me, that note went completely flat. And I'm only going to say this once. What the bloody hell was that? Seriously, I mean, what is up with the Saints getting off to these hot and fast starts only to deflate worse than Tom Brady's balls? Seriously. I mean, we scored on our opening drive only to never be heard of again. And of course, when you turn the ball over, 3 times when you're in the red zone, that's, what's going to happen. But, what do you truly expect? But let's break down this disaster one final time. All right, so I was completely wrong about this being a complete shootout. Obviously, with a score of 10-7, clearly that's not a shootout. So that was on me. I completely underestimated both these defenses, so my apologies. Completely on me. But again, of course, had the Saints actually scored, every time they were in the red zone, this actually could have been a blowout. So, it's crazy how things tend to work, against you when you turn the ball over. So, obviously. But that's the theme of the Saints this year, isn't it? Missed opportunities over missed opportunities. So, the play calling, to say that, was overwhelming, to say the least. But, I didn't disagree with going for it on 4th and 1 at the 20. I believe that came after Will Lutz had missed the first field goal, so I think that might have contributed to actually, trying to go for it, 4th and 1, So, we should have used Taysom over Kamara, but, I guess that's kind of the thing when you're juggling between two running backs. And I consider Taysom more of a running back than I do, a tight end or a wide receiver. But, that's just kind of who Dennis Allen is. He's a softie. He's aggressive when he shouldn't be, and not aggressive enough when he has to be. Does that make much sense? But either way, Dalton had a very Dalton-like day. 171 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He missed Taysom in the end zone. Then that's really big. And he took a sack, which I think was the only sack he took, which forced us to punt. So Andy could have been better, and he could have played better to prove to everybody that he was the right decision, and yet he had a very average game. And I kind of have a name for him now. It's kind of Average Andy. So yeah. Now, the run game was all over the place, kind of as I was just mentioning. While Kamara did have 107 yards and Taysom had 24, when you use them like that, you juggle them, it's kind of like the defense kind of sniffs it out. They kind of figure out what you're doing. So I thought, like, in those, second and shorts, third and shorts, that's a place where maybe you could have switched it up and used, like, someone like David Johnson or Eno Benjamin. Am I saying that right? I feel like I'm not saying it right, but, it could have been an opportunity where we switched it up and we used them instead of using, Taysom and Kamara, because, again, credit to the Panthers' run defense. They were figuring it out. But, if you use different guys, what's the point of bringing in David Johnson and Eno if you're not going to really use them? So it's kind of like, there's the moments where you can use, like, the trickery. But, as I mentioned, Carolina had already kind of figured it out at that point. So there were times when it didn't work and we couldn't sustain those drives. But the receiving wasn't that much better. Olave led with 60 yards, but had that huge fumble. And listen, that was entirely on him. A key moment in the game where you could have at least maybe kicked a field goal at that point. So, it's a learning experience. He'll grow and he'll continue to be great. I guess you can kind of just chuck it up to, rookie year, rookie mistake. So he'll learn from it. Rashid had 34 yards, David Johnson had 28 yards, and Juwan had 21 yards. So, again, not a great day passing either. So, and as far as the run is concerned, I kind of figured that we wouldn't be able to run in Carolina anyway. But if I could sum up the offensive performance, I'd say, listen, guys, it simply just wasn't good enough. And, it's a game where it became apparent, I should say, where it was going to come down to who had the ball last. And the Saints had an opportunity off a turnover and ended up giving it right back with yet another Will Lutz missed field goal. So, this game could have really gone differently if the Saints had stopped shooting themselves with mistakes. But that is the Saints for you. On the flip side, I thought that the defense did an outstanding job until that final drive where all Carolina needed was a few runs and a chunk play, and they did exactly that. But prior to that, the defense had done its job. Could have held Carolina to 3 had they just picked up that fumble in the end zone for a touchback instead of the touchdown. But listen, this is where the touchdown gets. Sorry, my bad. This is where this loss becomes super, super infuriating. The defense held Sam Darnold to 5 completions, 43 yards, and 32 yards rushing, and 2 interceptions. His worst game so far. So, even I was surprised, because of how well he had played prior to this game. It's why I predicted a possible shootout. So I never saw that coming, and clearly I was very, very wrong about that being a shootout. But anyway, sorry, my bad. Again, I never saw that coming, but, clearly it didn't matter because it didn't, Carolina didn't need to win it by passing it. So that's kind of the situation is they won it on the ground, and we allowed them the space to do that to pick up, the first down. So imagine holding a quarterback to those numbers and still coming up short and, and losing by 3. So Terrence Marshall led with 23 yards receiving, but made the play that helped them get into the red zone to kick the walk-off field goal for Piñero. DJ Moore had 10 yards, and Laviska had 8. So if you think we had a bad day, they had an even worse day. So, they ran the ball better with Chuba, who led with 69 yards, and Deontay Foreman with 68, before he had to go and get stupid and get himself tossed. So, and listen, our defense, again, got the turnovers to put us, in good positions to put up points. Matthew finally came up with a big play, and, what do we do with it? We turn it over. And the same thing with Sorensen, who got what could have been the game-winning interception, and yet, again, we still didn't do anything with it on a missed field goal. So it was kind of like a middle finger to the defense. It was a middle finger to the defense. They helped try to bail us out and do what they possibly could, and yet we were just like, whatever, we don't want this opportunity. So, I don't know, kind of disrespected. I guess the defense probably felt disrespected. That's why they let Sam Darnold go downfield on them. But anyway, it's kind of like, whatever, no need to get your emotions invested, Again, it's just another stupid loss. And had this loss actually meant something, I'd say that this was probably the worst loss of the entire season. But, since I guess it didn't really matter, unless you care about, standings and stuff. But I'd say, it is what it is. No real need to get your emotions into it. But, I guess that's a wrap for the NFC South, a 3-way tie at 7-10 behind the Bucs, who finished 8-9. So enjoy your participation trophy, Bucs fans. I mean, it's kind of like, a kid that doesn't even come in, 3rd or 4th, and they still have to give him a participation trophy. You only got that because everybody has to have one division winner, so enjoy that. Well then. Well, friends, what have we learned today? We learned that this season was a season of missed opportunities, and I'm not going to stop saying it, and, letting games slip away. In reality, the Saints could have won this division with a 9-8 record, only needing 2 more wins. And we let 4 games slip away from us, which was the Bucs, Vikings, Bengals, and Cardinals. 5 if you include the first Bucs game. I'm only including the second one. But listen, I don't think that anybody really truly saw this coming. So, because before the season, people had the Saints actually winning the division at least. So, to have another 7-win season just kind of takes you back to when, the Saints went 7-9 for those 3 consecutive seasons. Which, ironically, little weird fact, when I started YouTube 10 years ago, ironically, the Saints finished 7-9 that season. So, I feel like maybe I'm bad karma for the Saints, and maybe I should be careful next year. But either way, just a little weird fact there. But, that's a below average record. And I think when Sean retired, and I use the term loosely, who better to take over than, DA? I mean, it sounded right, for a while. It sounded like a good idea. And who better to replace him than a guy who's literally been, standing next to him, calling the defense for so many years, and in fact actually called the game last year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I feel like the expectations were so high for Dennis Allen because, we see Sean Payton, we know what Sean Payton did. And so I think we kind of had that same mindset. And, when it didn't work out, I feel like we've been so mean and harsh on DA. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, but I think our expectations were way too high for this guy. So on the other hand, I sort of feel bad for DA, and, that's kind of the thing about DA is that, I think he means well, and I'm sure, he's a nice guy and all, but I think he lacks passion for this role, and there's no urgency, there's nothing spectacular, it's very basic, boring football, no energy, no bag of tricks, he plays it too conservatively, and he doesn't always make the best calls. So overall, I don't think he's fit to be head coach, at least not of this team, but, I don't know if he's going to be fired or not. Now, I think it may be different for Pete. I think Pete's job is pretty much on the line here. However, regardless of how many people are on the fired DA train, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So, your guess is as good as mine. But I do want to say this. If it were up to me, the only way I would keep DA on the team is if he went back to doing what he does best, where his roots are. He played safety in college, so he knows the defense. If he goes back to that and focuses on the defense, well, we go and look for a head coach, which I don't think is going to be Sean Payton. I think that's how I would keep DA with the Saints, where he can, help tweak the defense, which it got progressively better. We'll talk about that right now. But speaking of which, DA will be questioned for his decision on keeping Winston benched for Dalton. Honestly, I think it was a business move. I think Andy Dalton was supposed to be... I don't think that Andy Dalton was supposed to be the permanent solution. I think he became that, but he was supposed to be the temporary solution. And I do think that the intention was to allow Winston to rest and heal up for maybe a few games, but in that time, DA sort of liked what he saw with Andy Dalton, which is, I guess, is the fact that he's a veteran or experienced. But either way, I'm just trying to guess what his mindset was here. So maybe he thought that Andy Dalton could probably progress with this team a lot faster than maybe Winston could. Maybe that's the mindset. So, now, was Andy Dalton great? No, because we went over the numbers. Was he terrible? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say he was terrible. Did he give us the best opportunity to win games? I don't know. I don't know that because it's a team effort, and there were plenty of opportunities in which all aspects of the team failed. So, you look at Dalton's numbers, and he finished with 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 2,817 passing yards. For a backup, those are decent numbers. So, however, I don't think it was enough to keep him in New Orleans. And for what it's worth, with how many were on the Winston bandwagon train here, I can't say that the fans did the best that they could to embrace Andy Dalton. And I think he knows that, and I think he felt that. I think a handful of Saints fans kind of just accepted it, but I think that there were more fans that were literally on the, Winston bandwagon. So, Dalton isn't completely licked. I think if he learns not to take those sacks and gets the ball out much quicker, then I think he would benefit a younger team who needs that. Kind of like, I guess, what Joe Flacco was to the Jets, I guess. So, him coming in, showing the younger guys, the ins and outs, playing for a few games, then getting benched for, the new guy, so to speak. So, I would not be surprised if Andy Dalton landed with the Falcons or the Panthers next year. But, he did have his targets with, Juwan, who had the most touchdowns with 7. So, I'd rather him stay than Troutman, but that's just me, or Pete. Why do we still have Pete? I would love to have Shaheed stay with us another year. I mean, can you imagine Shaheed and Olave, that crazy duo next year? Obviously, Obviously, we need a quarterback to throw to them, but imagine that Shaheed and Olave next season. Doesn't it have a nice ring to it? Like I'm a huge Shaheed fan, and I would go out and buy his jersey in a heartbeat. But that's just me. But either way, Olave will only get better. This was his first year, and considering the fact, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, and who threw those passes to him? No, I'm just messing. But seriously, congratulations to Olave. As for the others, I don't know about Traquan, Callaway, Jarvis, or Kirkwood returning, but I have mentally prepared what's to come with Michael Thomas. So, whatever the decision is, I already kind of accepted it. I don't know the situation on Kamara. While he had over 1,000 yards in rushing and receiving, he did fumble quite a bit. So, and I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason, depending on what happened last year in the offseason, what happens in Vegas. Sometimes what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. So I don't know what's going to come of that, if anything is going to come of that. But depending on what happens to Kamara, I think we still need to go out and find a competent back for him. That's not Taysom Hill. So it would be nice to get a running back that, would complement him like Mark Ingram did back in the day. You know what I'm saying. Now the question becomes, what do we do with Winston? Now, I know that I have not been the most supportive of Jameis Winston, and I own that. And I'll admit it, I don't really know what to make of Jameis Winston. He was injured in 2 seasons. He had a 4-to-5 ratio this season. So it's really hard to analyze that. And I can't go based on what he did with Tampa Bay. So to me, Jameis Winston is this big enigma to me that I just can't figure out. So if Dalton goes, does Winston go too? Do we let him walk, or does, that option stay open since I believe he has 1 year left? This is going to be a very interesting offseason with the quarterback situation, but my hope is that we keep Taysom. I mentioned it before. I think he's more than proved himself. He didn't fumble this year, so, which was kind of his problem. Like, if he had one issue, it was that he fumbled a little bit. So the fact that he didn't this year speaks volumes that he's growing as a player. So that's me. I would love to keep Taysom. But, we also now have to focus on Sean Payton and the situation and what's to come with that, and how it can be more flexible, being the fact that we are a little bit over the cap. I believe we are. But either way, as far as the defense goes, while he had the most interceptions this season, I was not overly impressed with Matthew this season. Nor was I with May, but, he had the injury, and I was not all that impressed with Debo either. But the Honey Badger, I don't get the appeal of the Honey Badger. I'm sorry to say this. I know he had 3 interceptions, but I wasn't sold. But, Granderson I like, Sorensen I like, Taylor, Ellis, Warner, and of course the OGs like Cam, DeMario, and Lattimore. Those guys I love. The defense played better in the final games of the year, and, if we can get some guys up front to help block and to help with the run defense, someone who's going to replace Davenport. And, speaking of which, what a way to end the season. Your career as a Saint, Davenport. But, find a guy to replace him and find another corner and safety to tweak that defense. We can be as good as we were, the previous year. So, listen, the Saints fell flat because they were injured. We're having to rotate guys in different positions. And again, it doesn't help when players don't do their job. So, when you don't block or tackle or, get interceptions, or, when you throw interceptions and you miss kicks and you get these penalties. Speaking of which, I love Will Lutz. I always have. And he reminds me so much of Hartley. But he missed 8 field goals on the year, and those came in big moments like in London. So that's going to be something to think about, But these are just my thoughts on, what the Saints need to do. That's why I'm taking so long to wrap this up, because these are just my thoughts on what the Saints need to focus on next year. But that's, these things are givens. So, but, it's the Saints. There's always drama in the offseason, so stick around for that, guys. Now, for the fun stuff. As for me, this was a different experience for me, absolutely. it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, I should say, and I kind of wish it wasn't. But I think I took the biggest chance of, coming up on here, showing my face, just showing every aspect of me, and, just going for it, just talking, about the Saints. Even though the Saints did the opposite of what I told them to do, so they made me look like an idiot. Thank you for that, guys. But either way, although with the exception of a few games, I was right about the Raiders and I was right about the Eagles, so I take credit for that. But either way, obviously I could have done much better. I could have written better scripts. I could have brushed up on my knowledge and brushed up on certain terminologies. But, I think I did the best that I could given what I have. Obviously I don't have the best equipment here, and I don't have the best space to film this, and I don't have an expensive microphone, but I think given the circumstances and the fact that I was bouncing, to and from my hometown to my new hometown, every other week. So, it did get pretty overwhelming at times, but I told myself I was going to see it through because I'm the worst person at, seeing things through or sticking around for the long term. But I did enjoy talking about the Saints, and, I felt like I've always felt like I haven't had a voice in doing that. And, this is going to be my team for the rest of my life, or as long as, football exists. So, and I wanted to share that passion with people and share the emotions of what I guess an ordinary fan goes through, I didn't do it for the recognition. I didn't do it for the internet fame. I love the Saints, and despite everything, they've helped me through some pretty difficult, tough times. So, even despite the scandals and the controversies, this is still my team. And I just kind of wanted to share that with people. But will I come back? Will I come back with these awful, awful Walmart brand lashes? I don't know, because I'm so used to planning things and having an idea of where I'm going to go, and when those things don't pan out, then they lead to major setbacks. So I'm doing this new thing where I'm kind of liking where I have no idea of what's going to happen or where I'm going. I feel like it's been better for me, these last couple of years. So I like not knowing what's going to happen in the future. But either way, I'll keep my videos up for whoever wants to watch them, and they can do whatever they want and make fun of me. That's okay, no worries. But anyway, before I go, really quick, I just want to wrap this up. Since this is my last video, I'll just give my Super Bowl picks here and there. So, I would love for the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl, and, not just because of DeMar, but because I think that the city of Buffalo has gone through so much, especially in 2022. And listen, I love Buffalo. I've never been there. I had an opportunity, had the money saved, maybe some other time, but I do love Buffalo, and I love the Bills, and, what a way to kind of erase the whole 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses and to actually win one. So, I'm going KC and Buffalo in the AFC Championship, and I'm choosing the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl. As far as the NFC goes, I think it's going to be between Philly and the 49ers, and I believe that the 49ers were an interception away last year from making the Super Bowl. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't actually watch that game because I was actually at an NBA game. But either way, if I recall correctly, it was an interception away. But either way, the 49ers remind me of the 2012-2013 49ers with Kaepernick and Alex Smith. Doesn't it sound a little familiar with Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo? But either way, it could just be the Chiefs and the 49ers again because the NFL loves its repeats. But either way, I think that's all I have to say. Wow. That was a long one, wasn't it? So, once again, my name is TwoDatQueen94. I am also on Twitter under the name Olave the Saint Savior, so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If not, that's okay, no worries. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd much appreciate it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and go Saints. Oh, and I do want to say I do this because I'm a rocker, so rock on, so to speak. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and go Saints, baby. Who dat? Okay, bye-bye.